What do you say, friends and neighbors? Good to see you this morning. Hello, 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 and welcome to the program, The Bill Press Show. Coming to you live across this great land of ours on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish? You got us on the Dish Network or on DirecTV. And coming to you live anywhere around the globe on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. 25 countries yesterday tuning in. Hope you are one of them today. And the big celebration of France at the White House is over. Ended yesterday with a glorious day, a big, huge arrival ceremony on the South Lawn in the morning, followed by 2 or 3 hours of top-level meetings in the Oval Office, and then the joint news conference between President Obama and President Hollande of France, which I attended yesterday, and ended with a big state dinner and reception last night at the White House, a glorious time had by all. Such a good time that one of the reporters yesterday asked President Obama if France had now replaced England, Great Britain, as his number one love among other countries. The president said, just like he wouldn't choose between his two daughters, he would not choose between France and England either. Back here at home, the debt ceiling passed the House last night, the full House. After 3 years of demanding they wouldn't raise the debt ceiling without getting something for it, House Republicans totally capitulated, threw it open to a vote of the full House, a clean debt ceiling bill, no strings attached. It passed 221 to 201. Only 28 Republicans, however, voted for it. We got it all covered. Want to hear from you what it all means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Here we are with the Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat?
and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. We're ready. We got our parkas on. We got our boots ready. Biggest storm of the winter. Bring it on. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Hello. Hasn't hit yet, but it's expected later today throughout the southeast and the northeast. Joining our good friends in the Midwest who've had nothing but snow for the last couple of months. We say a big Wednesday morning hello to all of you and welcome to the program. February 12 it is. Can you believe it? We are coming to you live from our nation's capital. They're so afraid of the snow here. They moved up the votes in the House and the Senate yesterday because they believe by tonight everything's going to be shut down here in our nation's capital. And the state visit with President François Hollande from France ended yesterday, again, just in time. He'll be able to get out of town without being snowed. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if the president of France were snowed in to Washington? But no, he'll be back on his way to Paris this morning. No, actually, he's going to the West Coast, going to the Silicon Valley to meet with some high-tech leaders there and try to lure some of that business over to France while he's here. Hey, great to see you this morning. I hope you're ready to go here to tackle the big stories of the day with all of us. And there's lots to talk about, not just yesterday's big state visit, but the big vote last night on the debt ceiling. We'll tell you what's going on. That's our job. You tell us what you think about it, what it means to you. That's your job at 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. And, of course, you can send us your comments if you prefer to do that on Twitter or on Facebook. On Twitter at BP Show and Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Thank you for listening on your local progressive talk radio station. Thank you for watching on Free Speech TV. And thank you for tuning in around the globe on TawkrTV. How about it? 25 countries yesterday tuning in. We salute you all, our international audience. How about the entire team here this morning? Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hi.
Good morning.
And we're not sure about tomorrow morning how many you'll see here. Maybe just me.
Stay tuned. We brought our sleeping bag, so we're all ready.
Alicia Cruz is here on the phones, and Cyprian Bolding here, keeping us looking good on the video cam. So it was very exciting yesterday down at the White House to hear French spoken all over the place. There were as many French reporters as there were American reporters there. I had a good chance to practice my French, which was fun. Don't get to do that often at the White House. President Obama got a chance to practice his French yesterday, too. It started while we were still on the air with the big welcome on the south lawn of the White House, President Obama.
Good morning, everybody. Bonjour. That's the extent of my French.
And then that was it. His French really doesn't exist. Yeah,
a little pitchy dog. A little pitchy dog.
He never was able. He never was able to. He doesn't know how to pronounce the French president's name.
No, he doesn't.
It's François Hollande. Hollande. And he kept saying Hollande.
He made it so much harder than it actually is.
Yeah, I think
Hollande.
Hollande. He was trying too hard. Every time he came out, I was sitting there in the news conference. I just wanted to say Hollande, not Hollande.
Ooh la 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 land.
Yeah, it was Hollande. All right, but he welcomed him officially to the White House.
We are honored to have you here as one of our strongest allies and closest friends. Welcome to the United States. Bienvenue, mes amis.
There it is. They had fed him just a couple of quick little words. The funniest moment of the news conference for me was when one of the French reporters asked President Hollande, how can you go meet with American businessmen in the Silicon Valley and be taken seriously? They think you're a socialist. And President Obama just laughed and he says, well, I'm glad that French reporters and American reporters have something in common. They both call us socialists. I was near Dana Milbank and I cracked to him. This is the first time we've had two socialists in the East Room, not just one. So we've got a lot coming up here. David Jackson joins us, as he's been doing every Wednesday morning from the White House for USA Today. Chris Anders from the ACLU here about the latest rumors of a pending drone attack. He'll be in studio with us, as will John Nichols from The Nation magazine, here as a friend of Bill a little bit later. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
A couple of other stories making news about the state dinner. Just as important as the person who the state dinner is being thrown for is what they're going to eat. What was on the menu at the state dinner last night? Well, we have the menu here, Bill. I'll just run through a couple of items. First course was American Osetra caviar with a fingerling potato velouté with quail eggs and crisped chive potatoes. The second course was a winter garden salad. The main course, all-American, dry-aged ribeye beef with Jasper Hill Farm blue cheese, charred shallots, oyster mushrooms, and braised Swiss chard. And for dessert, a Hawaiian chocolate malted ganache with vanilla ice cream and tangerines. It was served with all-American wines as well.
Yes. And there was no dancing last night.
No dancing?
And they said they had no dancing because that was one way not to embarrass the French president, who didn't have anybody to dance with.
Right.
Although he could have found a couple of people.
He could have found somebody.
Susan Rice was there last night. She cuts a mean rug. I've seen her. But anyhow, they just, no dancing.
The flying tomato fell short yesterday in the Olympic halfpipe event. Shaun White failed to medal in the event that he was favored to win. He came in fourth. He didn't even get a silver or bronze. The gold went to Switzerland's Yuri Podlachkov. They just call him iPod. It's Yuri Podlachkov. They just call him iPod. He got the gold. It came down to where he delivered a really big trick that Shaun White knew he was going to have to top. He tried to top it, and he had to use his hands when he landed, which is a big no-no in the sport. So Shaun White says he's done with snowboarding for now. He'll probably come back at some point, but he needs some time off of the snow so that he can travel with his band.
I think Shaun White has come across not the best face of America in these Olympics. Look, he's a phenomenal athlete, the flying tomato.
Yeah.
But, he dropped out of that event, and nobody else, too late for somebody
screwed
else to
another
take his
snowboarder
place.
Out of a chance, yeah.
And then he screwed the pooch yesterday with this thing, So, yeah, I mean, come on, Shaun.
Yeah.
Too much ego and not enough practice, maybe.
And Manhattan's Madame Tussauds Wax Museum has finally had enough of Justin Bieber. They had a wax figure of Justin Bieber, but due to excessive groping, fondling, and grabbing by excited fans that visit the museum, the figure has been taken aside for regular maintenance because it just got so messed up. It's a wax figure. You keep putting your hands all over it, it will mess it up. One visitor, the Madame Tussauds general manager, Brett Pigeon, says it's very disappointing, but hopefully they can welcome a new grown-up Justin back in the attraction in the near future after being rehabbed and fixed up.
Just melt that statue.
I agree.
Yeah.
Turn it into crayons.
Right. I gave a talk last night at Montgomery College out in Germantown campus.
Represent.
And the first question I had from the audience was whether I thought Justin Bieber should be deported to Canada.
Really? Perfect. I'm sure you have a few things to say about that.
That's the question. Just wanted to lighten it up a little bit before we ask a more serious question. But I thought, there we go. Sign of the times. Here's the sign of the times. How about this announcement yesterday from the floor of the House? They were going to vote on this tonight, whether or not to lift the debt ceiling. Instead, they voted on it last night because they're afraid of getting snowed in. And the announce came on the final vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 221, the nays are 201. The bill is passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
221 to 201. The debt ceiling has the House voted to lift the debt ceiling as was necessary to pay our bills with no conditions, no strings attached. That in itself, though, is the story, because you know what's been going on. That for the last 3 years, the Republicans, before that, they always raised the debt ceiling automatically. What was it, like 18 times under George Bush?
Right.
Because we run out of money. Congress spends all this money they don't have. And there is a debt ceiling which actually shouldn't exist, but it does. So they have to do something about it. And always in the past, it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat in the White House. They just said, okay, boom, fine. You just raise the ceiling. Doesn't mean you have to spend more. It means you have to pay your bills because they've already spent more. At any rate, they always did it. But for the last 3 years, it's been the Republican cry has been, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that unless Obama pays the price. We're not going to do that unless he gives us something in terms of more tax cuts for the wealthy or more subsidies for the oil industry or kind of whatever. They went so far as the last time, if you recall, when the president has said, no, we're not going to negotiate. We're not going to pay ransom. You're not going to hold us hostage. You racked up the bills. Damn it. Now you pay them. That's it. So I'm not going to deal with you on this. And President Obama held firm the last time, and the Republicans, okay, if you don't deal, we're going to shut down the government. The president called their bluff, and he said, go ahead, shut down the government. Last year, now remember, the Republicans did shut down the government, and they had hell to pay. It backfired. Big time. Everybody blamed them for it, just like they did when the Republicans pulled this trick under Bill Clinton back in 1994. And the Republicans had to throw in the towel at that time, reopen the government. But here they were on the brink of doing it all over again. So this time, with the debt ceiling coming up here in February, 27th of February is when they would totally run out of money. The Republicans once again said, you're not no, Mr. President, you are not going to get a clean debt ceiling bill. We want something for it. But here's what's funny. They could never agree what they wanted for it. At first they said, well, we'll raise the debt ceiling, but we want the Keystone Pipeline. Well, they couldn't get enough votes for that. Okay, we're going to raise the debt ceiling, but we want to kill Obamacare, repeal Obamacare. And then finally people said, no, we don't have enough votes for that, and we're never going to get it. Okay, we want the debt ceiling, but we'll agree to, we're going to do something about military pensions that were part of the last budget bill. And we're going to clean that up. They couldn't get the votes for that. Finally, Boehner could not get this, because, he was not going to let the full House vote. This had to be something, the Hastert rule, that 218 Republicans would vote for. He could not get 218 votes for anything. He could not get the Republicans to agree on anything. So yesterday morning, he threw in the towel and announced that last evening they would have a vote on a clean debt ceiling increase. Let everybody vote, including Democrats, and get it done. And you heard the vote, 221 to 201. Only 28 Republicans voted for it. 2 Democrats voted against it. So basically, it's another case where when you want to get something done in the House, you allow full vote and let the Democrats do it because the Republicans can't govern. It was the Democrats who provided the votes for the Farm Bill. The Democrats who provided the votes for the student loan fix last year. Democrats who provided the votes for the budget deal. Democrats who provided the votes to reopen the government. And Democrats who provided the votes last night to raise the debt ceiling. So having failed to get his Republicans to agree on anything, having totally capitulated, having totally surrendered, raised the white flag, Boehner, in typical fashion, then turned around and blamed it on Barack Obama.
It's the president driving up the debt, and the president wanting to do nothing about the debt that's occurring, will not engage in our long-term spending problem, and so let his party give him the debt ceiling increase that he wants.
Why doesn't he just say, okay, you won, I lost. All right, you got to vote. I don't. Okay, we give. You win. You won this one, right? No, he's got to turn around and spin it and blame it on Obama. Now, Boehner did that. Good for him. Again, proving, as the 5 cases I gave you, where the only way to get anything done in the House these days, because the Republicans can't or won't govern, is to open everything up to a full vote in the House. And the Democratic votes are there to get things done, right? They want to raise the minimum wage. There's no problem in the House if everybody could vote. They want immigration reform. Just let everybody vote. We've seen that. There are enough votes there to pass immigration reform. There are enough votes in the House to pass an extension of unemployment insurance. If Boehner will just let everybody vote. Let the Democrats and the Republicans all vote. But so Boehner threw in the towel, let this happen, but you know he's going to have some hell to pay for it. In fact, it goes over to the Senate now, where the Senate is likely to approve it, but the Tea Party's not happy. Listen to Ted Cruz.
The president is saying he wants a blank check with zero spending reforms, nothing fixing the problem. I think that's irresponsible to our kids and grandkids to give them that kind of debt.
Yeah, what's irresponsible is to spend all this money and then turn around and say, we put all this money on our credit card, but we're not going to pay our credit card now. We will let the full faith and credit of the United States collapse. That's what's irresponsible. But, of course, Ted Cruz doesn't understand it. Or if he does, he just wants to shut down. That's what he wants, to shut down the government. So, big surrender on the part of the Republican Party, 866-55-PRESS. A big deal yesterday, big vote in the House. What's it all mean? 866-55-77-377. Let's talk about it this Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Battle, the big fight, ain't gonna happen this year. John Boehner threw in the towel, and with the support of votes of mainly Democrats, debt ceiling raised last night by vote of 221 to 201. And John Boehner blames it all, of course, on Barack Obama, when the problem really is the dysfunction, total dysfunction of today's Republican Party. Susan's out in Gig Harbor, Washington. Hello, Susan. Early in the morning on the West Coast. Good morning.
Yes, Bill, the strange thing, I'm a C-SPAN junkie, so I was flipping back and forth to Tom Hartman. But what was strange is after that vote, they then throw in a bunch of different things they voted on really rapidly. But the one that was most curious was what was called House Resolution 3448. It deals with standards of banking rules dating back to 1934. And they were all on that. And the final flexing vote had vacillated between 407 and finally settled out at 415, with both parties deciding on it. The other strange thing is after the inauguration, there was envelopes given to Biden as well as John Boehner, and the soonest thing on the floor that morning was to vote down whatever standards had been regarding nuclear buildup in 1941. And I don't have that actual House resolution. You'd have to run it back off from, and I don't have internet, so you'd have to run it.
You know what? I'll look into that, Susan. I didn't know about this House Resolution 3448. All I got to say is, if it got that many votes, there wasn't too much controversy about it, for sure. I'll look into it. Thanks for the call.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Okay, 34 minutes after the hour, ran into a guy from California the other day, Sunday, when I was at Fox, who said, we love you guys from the East Coast, but, and this is a fellow Californian speaking to me, now that we now live in Washington, saying, we love you guys from the East Coast, but stop whining about the weather, and stop talking about the weather, and stop complaining about the weather, because you're not the only people in the country that do have serious weather. That's true.
That is true.
That is true. But I must say, particularly for the Southeast, not so much for the Northeast, for the Southeast, this has been a brutal winter, and it's unusual. A very interesting story yesterday, by the way, in the New York Times, that the fact that there's been so much cold weather here and so much warm weather in Alaska, temperatures in Alaska are like record warm for this winter, and we've had record ice and snow, is further proof of climate change.
Dude,
and global warming.
It's 60 degrees where the Winter Olympics are happening.
Yeah, and Sochi, 60 degrees, right? So the fact that there's so much cold, we've talked about that before, does it prove there's no climate change? It proves there is climate change and there is global warming. But at any rate, that is all said in the context of we are girding ourselves for another big storm, snow and ice. Again, Chicago, we beg your pardon. You guys have had the brunt of it. The last time I checked, 20 days this winter, sub-zero temperatures, 5 feet of snow so far. We haven't had anything like that. But the next big snow and ice storm is due to hit tonight in Atlanta and Birmingham. It starts this afternoon,
Yeah.
and then heads up this way.
us.
Right. But remember what happened the last time when Atlanta wasn't quite ready. The governor insists this time, they're going to be ready. They're probably going to shut down the entire. They did yesterday. They already shut down some roads yesterday.
Yeah.
They are not going to let it happen again. They'll just keep everybody home.
Yeah, I mean, they've canceled school
For
2 days ahead of time.
Yeah.
For the next 2 days.
And it's 45 counties. So, I mean, it's a massive part of the state.
Yeah. And it's not just Georgia, right?
Right.
It's Alabama. They're ready for it. Here's the governor of Georgia yesterday saying how this is the worst possible storm they could imagine.
This is one of Mother Nature's worst kinds of storms that can be inflicted on the South, and that is ice. It is our biggest enemy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That the snow, fine, but the ice on the roads, you can't see it, and boom, treacherous, particularly for people who are not used to driving in it and don't have tires or don't have chains.
And the biggest piece of the puzzle for all this in Georgia and in Alabama and in Louisiana, where they have this crop up every now and then, is their budgets have been hit so hard that they don't have the ability to just have a bunch of salt spreader trucks or snow plows or things like that to prepare the roads and then to clean up in the hours after a storm.
But you would also have to wonder about the wisdom of spending the money to buy all that equipment when you never freaking use it.
Right. I mean, here, as cuckoo as we are when it snows and how we all freak out, we do a pretty good job of cleaning up in this area.
And we got the stuff.
And we've got the stuff.
Right.
The roads are already salted, I'm sure, for the storm later on today. They're going to keep doing it. As soon as it's over, they'll start plowing.
And so the governor yesterday was saying, look, I'm telling you, he said, I want you to listen to me, right? I mean it. I mean it.
We're not kidding. We're not just crying wolf. It is serious business, and it is something that the greatest cooperation we can receive from the public will be our best asset.
Yep. So we want everybody to stay home. Meanwhile, nearby Washington, so we're expected to get the storm tonight, starting late this afternoon, early this evening.
Yeah,
it keeps changing.
It changes, but yeah, it's like late afternoon, overnight.
And then that storm will go actually from Texas across the south, and that band, if you see it, then up the East Coast, all the way up to Maine. Just incredible. And again, the conditions continue to be severe, cold and snow and ice all through the Midwest. That hasn't changed. But this is a new storm coming this way. Already, the governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley, has declared a state of emergency for the state of Maryland. The state of Virginia, the new governor, Terry McAuliffe, has declared a state of emergency for Virginia. And we here in Washington, D.C., are expected to get, I heard last night, somewhere from 7 to 10 inches of snow.
Well, what was great is at one point they were saying we could get anywhere between 2 and 14 inches of snow.
Oh, yeah.
That was what. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, hello.
Thanks a lot.
I don't know whether to get the little shovel out or the big shovel.
Right.
Yeah, right.
We can prepare for that.
But I've heard 7 to 10 inches of snow. The biggest snowstorm in 4 years here expected again to hit Washington, D.C. tonight, and then all up the East Coast. So already they're talking about if you've got a flight heading to these, then just forget about it. Flight heading to the East Coast or leaving from the East Coast, kind of forget about it. And of course, that'll be the ripple effect all the way across the country for flights. So we're going to see from tonight to today until Friday is going to be a mess, right?
Yeah, get ready for it.
All right. That raises a question about what are we going to say. What are we going to do? All right. You may see us tomorrow morning. You may not.
Well, look,
I think you will, but I don't know.
You will be able to walk in. I mean, you don't live that far away from the studio. I brought an overnight bag. I could very well be wearing this tomorrow if you're watching. The overnight bag was.
I could lend you some clothes.
The real reason to bring the overnight bag was to bring in a bottle of Jameson. Like that was not to bring a change of clothes,
okay.
but
Just to keep warm, of course.
Yeah. I mean, we got to stay warm.
All right. So we're gonna have a slumber party today.
Sure.
I think it'll be like those poor people in Atlanta who had to sleep in the supermarket.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw that picture again last night of those people lying on the floor of the produce aisle or whatever it was.
Cypri and I are going to bunk together. We'll just both. We can both fit on your couch, I think.
I know. I'm going to my bed. I don't care. I don't care what else happens. All right. David Jackson's got the field covered down at the White House early this morning for USA Today. He will be joining us, and we'll talk about this big state visit, the big debt ceiling vote last night, and the president is going out to California the end of the week to meet with another very important ally in Rancho Mirage. Not from Rancho Mirage, but they'll be meeting there. Tell you all about it when we come back here on this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
For more than 18 months, the members of AFSCME 3299 have been working to secure a new contract with the University of California. With workplace injuries at UC skyrocketing and government fines related to safety deficiencies at UC hospitals skyrocketing, Local 3299's top priority has been safe staffing at the workplace.
We've been short of people for the last 5 years.
They're stretching us thin, which the students are suffering, the faculty suffering, and the patients are suffering.
While UC administrators have granted these standards to other UC workers, they have refused to make similar accommodations for AFSCME represented workers who perform the most physically demanding labor at UC.
It takes a whole team to take care of the patient. It's not just the RN and it's not just the doctor. The nurses were able to win a great contract, and AFSCME workers, the patient care workers and service workers, they're part of the team and they deserve that same fair contract too.
We take pride into working for the university, and we feel like the university doesn't value the work that we do.
But the second-class treatment of AFSCME workers doesn't end at safety and staffing. On wages, benefits, and other issues, UC refuses to offer AFSCME 3299 members the same respect they afford their other workers.
I have 3 jobs because what the university pays me is just not enough to make a living for my family and myself.
99% of service workers in the UC system make so little money that they're eligible for at least some form of public assistance. At the same time, the number of executives in the UC system that have crossed over into making at least $250,000 a year has more than doubled since 2008.
The University of California has long been a beacon of hope and progress for those struggling for dignity and fairness. With such a proud history, it is disturbing to see the leadership of the university treat its lowest paid workers like second-class citizens.
All workers at the university deserve equal treatment.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
14 minutes before the top of the hour. Things here on this Wednesday morning, February 12. Things a little quieter down at the White House today. It won't be so crowded in the briefing room today. We've got all those Frenchies out of town. Day in, day out, David Jackson's got it covered for USA Today, joining us on our news line this morning. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill. How are you?
Big day yesterday, huh?
It was the briefing room was as crowded as I've ever seen it. I thought the fire marshal was going to come in and start throwing people out.
I'm telling you. Yeah, inside and outside, people crammed in there, right? The arrival ceremony, the meetings yesterday, the joint news conference, state dinner last night, it all seemed to go very well.
Yeah, very so. There were a lot of lifestyle reporters there yesterday, Bill, because of the French president's domestic problems, but
I know.
That issue never really surfaced.
No, it was funny. It was a different crowd there.
Yeah.
And, of course, a lot of lifestyle with the surrounding the dinner and the reception and who was wearing whom, as they say last night. I don't think there was any, breaking news out of the meeting.
No, it was all a bunch of updates about Syria and about foreign policy in general. It was interesting that one of the French reporters asked President Obama if he preferred France to Great Britain. That was probably the diciest moment of the news conference.
Well, I thought that was funny. Also, the one reporter who pointed out this to Hollande that everybody considers him a socialist, but of course he is, right?
Yes, proudly so.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always tough to compare the politics of Europe to the politics of the United States. They're just so different animals, but people try anyway.
The only tense moment I saw was the question about Iran, where some of the French and the president talked about, our presidents talked about this. A group of French businessmen just went to Tehran to try to make some new business deals.
Right. Yeah, they have more tension over there than they do over here in terms of the private sector wanting to do agreements with Iran. France and Iran have had a long-standing relationship, so it's a pretty difficult situation over there. But President Obama was pretty adamant that he would try to crack down on any companies that violate the embargo.
Now we're talking about foreign leaders. He meets another important one later this week.
Yes, he's in Southern California of all places. He's flying to talk to King Jordan, and that's going to start a round of new Middle East diplomacy. He's got King Abdullah of Jordan on Friday, and he's flying to Saudi Arabia in late March to talk to the king there. It seems like got some things cooking on the Middle East front. Not sure what's going on, but I'm sure we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, it's interesting that he would meet in Rancho Mirage of all places with the King of Jordan.
It is going to be interesting, and I'm curious to see how many of you pick up on it. I mean, the White House will tell you that the King of Jordan is already going to be in Mexico on the West Coast, so it's more convenient for him. But the president is flying to California first. He's going to stop in Fresno to review drought damage, and then he's going to go down to Sunnylands, which is near Palm Springs, to meet the king. But he's also going to stay there for the weekend, so we suspect some golf is involved in this trip as well.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
The Annenberg estate, which was a favorite hideaway for Nancy and Ronald Reagan.
Absolutely, and it's also where President Obama met the Chinese President Xi last year, so it's been used as a diplomatic venue before, so he's going to repeat the experience.
Now, the big news for the president last night, he must have been in the middle of that dinner actually just early in the dinner to find out that he had scored a big victory on Capitol Hill last night over the debt ceiling. I mean, David, for briefing after briefing after briefing, all the reporters say now, would you accept this deal, right? Would you accept this deal? How about this deal? How about this deal? And Carney kept saying, no, we want a totally clean budget deal. That's what they got.
Yeah, very much so. Big victory for President Obama. No, he insisted he wouldn't negotiate over the debt ceiling. He didn't, and the House wound up passing a clean debt ceiling bill yesterday, largely because the Republicans couldn't agree on what condition they might want to attach to the bill. If somebody important had some problem with whatever idea got thrown up, so Boehner eventually just put the bill on the floor, and of course it passed. There were only 28 Republicans, but there were more than 190 Democrats, so it got through.
It was interesting. They said, we want something. We're just not what the Republicans did, right?
Right.
We want something, right? But we're not sure what we want.
Right. Well, they wanted to try to save face somehow by putting something, even one little item on there with the debt ceiling. They couldn't agree on what that one item was. So Boehner, I think Boehner and the leadership realized they couldn't afford another debt ceiling crisis at this stage. So Boehner just put it on the floor.
And they certainly couldn't afford another shutdown, right?
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems there's maybe a lesson there learned for both sides, I mean, President Obama certainly, I think, comes away from it. He must come away from it feeling, I can take a strong stand and hold on to it and win.
Yeah, very much so. Although I think a lot of it is we're kind of clearing the decks for the election. I mean, it looks like the Republicans have decided they're going to fight the election strictly on health care.
Yeah.
So they want to get rid of the government shutdown issues, get rid of the debt ceiling issues. They're going to ignore immigration, I think, and then just try to win the election on health care. Meanwhile, President Obama, I think, is going to insist on some kind of immigration bill and some other stuff to try to get as much as he can out of this Congress before the elections roll around.
And the debt ceiling, of course, has to pass the Senate. What are the prospects there? What do you hear?
Oh, yeah, I think it'll be this morning. I think the Senate's kind of like the House. They want to go ahead and meet and get it passed and try to get out of here before the hard weather hits. So I suspect you'll see passage day, and you may even see President Obama sign the bill today.
Whoa.
Certainly tomorrow.
They could do it that fast?
Well, if they can get it printed up and all that, there's a procedure up on the Hill they have to go through, an enrollment procedure or something. So but they can move pretty fast when they want to. So yeah, I know he wants to sign it before he leaves for California, and hopefully that's what will happen.
Okay. Now the biggest question, of course, is the weather, David.
You tell me. I've heard ranges from 2 inches to 12 inches, so I don't know what we're going to get.
We were just talking about that.
It's all over the place.
And and it's particularly hit hard the South, right? Again.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, and what Atlanta's going.
Atlanta
is very anxious in the Carolinas. Yeah, it's going to be another one of those storms where it's going to be harder to the south of us than we'll probably get, but we'll get some of it for sure.
All right. So
the latest thing I saw said 4 to 9 overnight. In DC.
In
4 to
DC.
9.
Right. All right.
But also the D.C. area, because sometimes it seems like downtown doesn't get as much snow as the suburbs do, or at least it gets cleared away quicker.
All right. Now, we're both members of the White House Correspondents Association. You are a former president. We're supposed to have a big town hall meeting tonight of White House reporters.
That's right, yes.
Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, since most reporters work downtown, I think a few will. I know I'll show up just to bolster the crowd, but it depends on. If you notice on these snowstorms downtown, we don't get it very bad. They clear the streets pretty quickly, especially around the White House. So I think if people can get on the metro and get downtown, I think they'll be able to make it.
All right. Well, I'll see you there, David. Maybe we ought to bring a sleeping bag. We might end up.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe some show stovels, a couple extra boots.
Crash in the Lincoln bedroom, maybe.
You got it. All right. Catch you later.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
All right. Thanks, David Jackson at the White House for USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan. Thank you. And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the next hour, Chris Anders from the ACLU here in studio with us, starting off, and then Kevin Cirilli from Politico. Peter.
Interesting little story out of Maryland. 8 Republicans in the Maryland House of Delegates introduced a new piece of legislation called the Fourth Amendment Protection Act. What it would do is it would deny the NSA, quote, material support, participation, or assistance of any form. In other words, what that means is they are going to cut the water and electricity to NSA's headquarters in Fort Meade, Maryland.
Oh, I love
my
it.
goodness.
That's one way to shut them down.
They can't shut down the NSA as an organization, but they can get rid of the outside support, as they call it, material support, which would mean electricity and water, which are carried over public utilities in the state of Maryland.
I love
Shut it down.
Yeah,
Right?
right. You know what? This is sort of like the president says, if Congress won't act, I'll act by executive order.
That's right.
The state of Maryland was saying, if the president won't act, we'll use our state authority to do what we can.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, man.
There you go.
Cut your water off, baby.
Yeah.
Cut the turn off the lights on NSA. Shut down their power.
This
I'm for
is
it.
the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
What do you say, friends and neighbors? Good to see you this morning. Hello, 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 and welcome to the program, The Bill Press Show. Coming to you live across this great land of ours on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish? You got us on the Dish Network or on DirecTV. And coming to you live anywhere around the globe on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. 25 countries yesterday tuning in. Hope you are one of them today. And the big celebration of France at the White House is over. ended yesterday with a glorious day, a big, huge arrival ceremony on the South Lawn in the morning, followed by 2 or 3 hours of top-level meetings in the Oval Office, and then the joint news conference between President Obama and President Hollande of France, which I attended yesterday, and ended with a big state dinner and reception last night at the White House, a glorious time had by all. Such a good time that one of the reporters yesterday asked President Obama if France had now replaced England, Great Britain, as his number one love among other countries. The president said, just like he wouldn't choose between his two daughters, he would not choose between France and England either. Back here at home, the debt ceiling passed the House last night, the full House. After 3 years of demanding they wouldn't raise the debt ceiling without getting something for it, House Republicans totally capitulated, threw it open to a vote of the full House, a clean debt ceiling bill, no strings attached. It passed 221 to 201. Only 28 Republicans, however, voted for it. We got it all covered. Want to hear from you what it all means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Here we are with the Wednesday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The House of Representatives votes to raise the debt ceiling with no strings attached. John Boehner threw in the towel. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Wednesday, February 12th. Great to see you today. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. We are live in our nation's capital on Capitol Hill, coming to you across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station. Wherever you happen to be, coming to you live on Free Speech TV, also anywhere in this country, and coming to you live anywhere on the globe with our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Welcome to the program. Look forward to hearing from you about what all the issues of the day mean to you at 866-55-PRESS, or you can give us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. One of the big issues of the day, and increasing stories about that, front page New York Times yesterday, reportedly the administration is considering the use of a drone to attack and kill an American living in Pakistan, allegedly plotting against the United States. Chris Anders is a senior legislative counsel for the ACLU. He joins us in studio to talk about that issue and others. Hello, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Nice to see you again. Thank you. And you know the team here by now, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Good morning.
Alicia Cruz there. You call, you get Alicia on the line at 866-55-PRESS. Cyprian Bolding behind the cameras, but keeping us looking good in front of the cameras, looking kind of good as we can.
Do what he can.
I got to tell you, Sean White didn't look so good yesterday, did he? I mean, oh, man. He's the guy who dropped out of the one event because he said the slope was too rough,
yeah.
right? The Flying Tomato.
That's the one. Although he doesn't want to be called that anymore.
Oh, no. Is that right?
Yeah. He's grown up.
Did George Bush give him that nickname?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. He did call him that once.
I know he called him that. Right. Yesterday, he didn't do so well. Actually ended up fourth. He fell. Didn't fall. Well, yes, he did.
Yeah, he landed on his butt on one of them.
Landed on his butt.
Which apparently is very bad in snowboarding halfpipe. I think that's something you don't want to have happen.
Hey, it's par for the course for me.
Yeah, right.
On skis, not snowboarding. But afterwards, he said, well, you know, stuff happens.
It was disappointing on my end. I really wanted to land some better runs, and gosh, I hate the fact that I landed that run perfect in practice, and then I just got in the pipe and it didn't work out.
Yeah, that's what do you do, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you practice a little harder.
I mean, I guess maybe focus a little less on your band and your clothing line and your endorsement deals. And
so now he says what? He's going to sort of give up the sport and
he's
focus
walking away
on
from
other
snowboarding
aspects of his
for
life?
the time being. I don't know if he's done with it, but look, dude's a multimillionaire. He's got a brand. He's the most famous Winter Olympic athlete we have, and will remain so even after these Olympics, even though he didn't medal. I mean, he still will be the best-known winter athlete in America.
Here's what amazes me. This picture on the front page of the New York Times this morning, where he landed on the edge of the pipe.
Yeah.
And his snowboard actually like bends in half.
It's at like a 90-degree angle.
I mean, snowboards that I know they're pretty
amazing force.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But tough material, you know what I mean? It's
Flubber,
not something
apparently.
you could bend in half. They're not made of rubber, right?
I've never been on a snowboard, and I can guarantee you I never will be on a snowboard, so I have no idea.
Well, they're more flexible than I thought, for sure. Yeah. So all of that coming up. Start off with Chris Anders. Kevin Cirilli from Politico will be here at the half. And in the next hour, John Nichols from The Nation magazine as our friend of Bill for the hour, with Justin Sink from The Hill joining us. Lots to cover. Let's get right to it. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
What do you got, Peter?
The Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show has a new best in show, and it is Sky, the Wire Fox Terrier. 5-year-old Wire Fox Terrier. Goes by the name of Sky. Now, the sentimental favorite was the Bloodhound named Nathan.
Oh.
And so every time the camera would go to Nathan, the crowd would erupt and cheer, but the judge did not go for Nathan. The judge went for Skye, the Wire Fox Terrier. All told, according to the New York Times, terriers have won 46 times at the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show out of 138 editions. That's the most of any group.
Well, it seems to me then that there's a little bias there for terriers, right?
Seems that way. No bloodhound has ever won. So poor Nathan came in against all odds. Sony has unveiled their new, what they're calling a waterproof MP3 player. So it's like their iPod, but they say that you could take it underwater. You could even get the headphones that you put in that you could listen to while you're swimming. And to prove their point of how effective it is, when you buy it, it comes submerged in a bottle of water.
No.
So you buy it and it's floating inside a bottle of water. So be on the lookout for Sony's new waterproof MP3 player.
I mean, like, what's the point? If you're swimming, if, you're going to go body surfing or something in the ocean, which I love doing, I don't have to have my.
But let's say
don't have to be listening to music.
Let's say you're a runner, and you want to run in the rain, right? Like, which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about frying.
But you don't need a waterproof iPod to run in the rain.
It doesn't take a lot to ruin an iPod. It doesn't take a lot of water to ruin an iPod.
Really? Okay.
So this one you can take with you in all elements. So when you go running in the snow later on tonight, just think, damn it, I should have had my waterproof iPod with me. And let's say hello to Sheila Crabtree of Pataskala, Ohio. She got tired. Hi, Sheila. Well, we don't call her Sheila anymore.
Oh, no.
Sheila has changed her name. She's 41 years young, and she says that it's time to change her name from Sheila Crabtree. She will now be known as Sexy Crabtree. She legally changed her name to Sexy Crabtree.
I just want to point out that if you have two names, Sheila and Crabtree, and you're going to change one of them, I think Crabtree would be the one to change.
Yeah. So there you go. Hello, Sexy Crabtree.
It's all in a name, right? So, Chris, this story that the AP broke, New York Times picked up on yesterday, that reportedly the United States knows about an American in Pakistan who is linked with Al-Qaeda and is helping plan some attacks against the United States, and we're considering using a drone to take him out. Does the president have that authority?
Well, look, the president always has the authority to kill anybody who is causing a imminent concrete threat to the United States that can only be stopped by lethal force. So just in the same way that, if you use a similar analogy at home, it would be a police officer has a right to use lethal force as a last resort when it's to stop someone from causing death or serious bodily harm to somebody else. Now that's a test that police officers use here at home. That's basically the test internationally too for when any country can use force against somebody else.
Now, but this would be
self-defense.
This is pretty complicated because this would be our president ordering an attack.
Yep.
Against an American citizen in another country. So, what authority does President Obama have to kill somebody in Pakistan?
Yeah. So there also the other parts of the test because Pakistan obviously is a sovereign country.
Yeah.
Is if it's not with their permission, it would have to be that the Pakistani government is unwilling or unable to do it, and so the only way the United States would be to do it itself. Now these are things that are all required. These are lots of ifs. If you notice, if you notice as we were talking about this, there are lots and lots of different ifs, and then what has been made this even more complicated here has been that President Obama and his administration have been playing legal games with each of these terms. So imminent threat to you and me would mean imminent threat of harm would mean somebody's about to do something to you, right? You don't stop them soon, it's going to happen. They take this, they use this term now. This administration came up with this new term that they're calling elongated imminence, which is
really
if there's something couldn't be more Orwellian than have elongated imminence, which means that they think something could happen based on a pattern of activity, and if they look at a pattern of activity, maybe this will happen.
Boy, talk about Orwellian language, right?
Yeah.
But there's another factor here which we haven't, which is, you raise it, I think, as a last resort. In other words,
that's right.
Wouldn't they also have to prove that there's no way they could apprehend this guy and bring him to trial in the United States?
That's right.
Correct?
And that's right. And in a lot of these countries that where these drone attacks are happening, a lot of people who are actually very friendly to the United States are saying, no, this was not really a last resort, that there are ways that these people could have been captured by the country that they're in. And certainly with the amount of aid that we give to the Pakistani government, the close relationship with the Pakistani government, certainly it seems like there should be avenues that the United States should be able to pursue to try to get the Pakistani government, if this is someone the United States really wants, to get them to try to capture this person. And so that's another one of these big ifs, is they really have to look at that. And if you look at Osama bin Laden was in Pakistan,
yes.
The United States was able to capture him, right?
Right.
They went in there. They didn't capture. I guess they killed him, but they could.
Yeah.
They got into proximity with him without using drones or anything else. Now,
but
I don't know enough.
Also, without any knowledge of or approval of the Pakistani government.
Yeah, which is a whole other problem here. Now, one of the other pieces of the puzzle, apparently from the news reports, has been that President Obama made a promise last year that he was going to be used, if there's an American citizen involved, he'd be used in the military and not the CIA.
Right.
And apparently what the Pakistani government does not want the U.S. military being used in Pakistan. So, and this has been, now the reason for this is because when the United States uses the CIA, they won't even acknowledge that they're doing anything. And so it makes it easy. It tries to make it easy for the Pakistanis and for the United States, for everybody to deny that this thing actually happened.
Right.
But we don't operate that way with our military.
All right. Now, we've done this before, right?
Oh, yeah. This is like Groundhog Day. This is, if we were 10 days earlier, we'd say this is Groundhog Day. A year ago today was one of the hearings on John Brennan's nomination to be the CIA director, who basically was the architect of this whole drone program.
And it came out and it said that 4 times, I think, we've killed Americans on foreign soil.
Yep, so this would be number 5.
And then the president had a big speech at the National War College where he said, we're going to sort of change our policy, and from now on, we could only kill an American on foreign soil. This is my understanding of it. If the Department of Justice does a review and says, this kill is legal, is legit. Correct.
Yeah, in this kind of twisted bureaucratic world.
Is that where it
so that's where it seems
right now?
Yeah, that seems to be where it is right now. And so in this twisted bureaucratic world, the president's basically saying, yes, you as a United States citizen are entitled to due process, but that doesn't mean a court's going to be involved. It means that we as government bureaucrats and as the president are going to review our own decision and see if our own decision is correct. But this is, we're talking about a United States citizen being killed. This is not the other question about imminent threat. Is this has been going on for months apparently, and they still haven't made a decision. So if somebody's about to attack you, right, and then you're sitting around for months in a debating society over it, is that person really an imminent threat to the United States?
No, it's elongated. Imminent
very
threat.
long. Apparently.
Yeah, right. Under what authority could the Justice Department say that, yes, Mr. President, you've got the right to order this strike? Would it be, are they still acting under the September 11, 2001 authorization of force?
Well, and this is another area too. The government has refused, the president has refused to make public the legal opinions, even dealing with the United States, the killing of United States citizens last year. There are 4 opinions. Mm-hmm. They've hidden them from everybody except briefly they showed them to a few members of Congress last year when they were under pressure. And from what we know, the government basically toggles back and forth between saying that these are claims based on self-defense, which would be basically a constitutional right of the president,
right,
and the authorization for use of military force from 2001 that was basically supposed to be for Afghanistan, but now has been used by President Bush and President Obama as authority to send the military
Overall.
pretty much wherever they want.
Yeah. Nobody's on top of it like the ACLU. This is really troubling, and it's unusual, though, that we know about this ahead of time, which I want to get into with you, Chris, when we come back. How do we find out about this, and what should the president do? And has anything changed from the president's big speech last year? 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. We've talked about it before. Let's talk about this whole, this raises the whole question of drones and whether there are any real guidelines for their use. Let's talk about it here on this Wednesday show, Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad, as a friend, as a husband,
As a wife.
as an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It's 26 minutes after the hour with Chris Anders from the ACLU, of which I am a proud member, long time, senior legislative counsel. So what, we're watching this happen, Chris, how do we find out about it?
Well, there was a story in the Associated Press a couple days ago.
But how'd they find out about the White House leak it, or do we know?
That's a really good question, because what's interesting about this story is the president has not made a decision yet, and the government has not made a decision yet. So this is something that's like in the works in real time and is being leaked in real time, and but it's a good thing, because it means that, you know, for your listeners, for all of us, we get a chance to try to weigh in and basically say, you know, is this the country that you want? Do you want a country where, you know, president can be judge, jury, and executioner, and on his own decision, you know, advised by a bunch of lawyers and bureaucrats, can decide whether American citizens live or die, should the United States military, our soldiers, be asked to shoot and kill our own people?
Well, when you put it in that context, I think it's something people can get a hold of. For example, let's say Germany. There's a German who came to this country who's wanted for serious crimes, or even plotting against the government of Germany. And he comes here and he's living in Phoenix. And the German government, what would we say if the German government sent a hit squad or a drone into Phoenix to kill a German citizen, right?
Well,
we'd be outraged.
And the troubling part about this is that the United States is the world's leader. I mean, it's the remaining superpower in the world, and the example that the United States set is the example that the rest of the world follows. And so, you know, President Obama keeps saying, like, well, we have these rules, we have these protections, and we're putting in all these things into place. But then he hides the rules, and won't give them over even to members of Congress, and then continues to go out and do these kinds of practices. And we keep seeing these.
Got to stop you there. I'm glad we know about it, and I'm glad you're on the case.
Thank you.
Stay on the case. ACLU.org. Chris Anders. Thanks, Chris.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you today in part by AFSCME. You know, the good men and women of AFSCME, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. Under President Lee Saunders, who was a guest at the state dinner last night with President Francois Hollande. Lee and his wife Lynn, I noticed in the Washington Post, were there. Somehow, I was invited, but I had a speech last night at Montgomery College out in Germantown, and so I had to go out there instead. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are a lot of great dining options out there. You can have your own state dinner at
where?
One of the fine
restaurants in
franchises out there. In
Great
Germantown.
people, by the way, at the community college there in Montgomery Community College.
My
in Germantown.
people. You were in my neighborhood.
I know. I was. Yeah. Good students ask a lot of very, very smart questions. Good group. We were talking about AFSCME. Yes, AFSCME, Making America Happen. Check out their website at afscme.org, AFSCME.org. What do you know? They actually got something done last night in the House of Representatives. A vote of 221 to 201. The House voted to raise the debt ceiling. Okay, Kevin Cirilli is here from Politico. Hi, Kevin. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me. Good morning. Happy Wednesday.
All right. We know John Boehner and the Republicans have said we are never, never going to increase the debt ceiling without getting something on the other side to cut spending. We want something as a price, the price that the president has to pay to raise the debt ceiling. What did the Republicans get last night?
Well, they got to get out of town ahead of a snowstorm, I think is what they really got. Washington, where all it takes is an impending snowstorm in order to get some action on the debt ceiling. But really, I think that was a major factor in this, to be honest.
No conditions.
No conditions.
Strings.
No
clean,
strings attached. This
clean.
was a clean piece of legislation. They just raised the debt ceiling. Republicans caved. In fact, House Speaker John Boehner told members of his caucus yesterday, we got the monkey off our backs. And so I think now they feel that they don't have to wrangle with the far right in their own party on the debt ceiling, at least for this year ahead of the midterm.
Right. I thought the most telling thing to me was sometime over the last week, I think it was in The Hill, it may have been on Politico, that I saw a headline, Republicans want something.
Yeah.
They're not sure what they want. Well, I figure if they don't know what the hell they want, then they're not going to get it. Well, and they went, at first, they threw stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
They tried to get 218 Republican votes for increasing the debt ceiling with something.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we'll attach Keystone Pipeline.
Military pension cuts was something else.
Military pension cuts. Repeal Obamacare. I mean, there was all this stuff thrown out. He could not get his caucus. Isn't that what happened? He couldn't get his caucus to agree on any one of those cuts.
I think that he couldn't get them to agree on the cuts, but also I think that they wanted to stick together with attacking Obamacare in a mid-election year. And I think to keep that focus on Obamacare heading into, I mean, they have a chance to win back the Senate. It's a very competitive, heightened sense of partisanship on Capitol Hill. And I think that with the topic of the debt ceiling, something that was politically bruising to say the least, Bill, back in the government shutdown, the architect of which, Senator Ted Cruz, has, it's unclear what he's going to do. But I think in the Senate, he'll let this thing through a little bit. I do think he'll let it through without much of a brouhaha. But
and so they invoked the Hastert rule, meaning you have to have 200 the majority of the majority, right? Unless you can get 218 Republican votes, he won't even allow a vote in the House. But when you look back, the only way they've been able to get anything done in the House, whether it was the budget deal or the student loan vote or reopening the government, the farm bill, and now the debt ceiling, is when Boehner has allowed the entire House to vote.
Yeah.
And he gets that done with Democratic votes. There were only 28 Republicans who voted for it last night.
Yeah, and yesterday on the Hill, there were aides running around saying we got to get to 18, got to get to 18. That was the key number for them, and they exceeded that. But you're right. I mean, only 28 Republicans voting for them.
So it's sort of like when Boehner says, "All right, we got to get something done. Okay, we'll let the Democrats do it because we can't." I mean,
but it is a marked difference that you're seeing in Speaker Boehner now versus even 6 months ago, and I think
willing
that's
to stand
really
up to the Tea Party at least more often.
Yeah, right. What a major way to do it. I mean, this is a guy who just last year was saying that the debt ceiling would not be raised or that there would only be conditions. Remember, think back, we have such a short-term memory here in Washington, but think back just last year with the fiscal cliff, sequestration, the government shutdown, all of that, what that did to the GDP and just how negative the effects that reverberated not only on Wall Street with the stock market, but also on Main Street, the consumer uncertainty, all of that over now because they were able, they avoided another contentious brinkmanship battle.
Now, I thought this was, if I'd been at the news conference yesterday with Speaker Boehner, I would have laughed out loud at this. But so he basically throws in the towel and admits we can't agree on anything. So we're just going to let the Democrats do what the hell they want anyhow. And then he turned around and blames it on President Obama.
Well, the president driving up the debt, and the president wanting to do nothing about the debt that's occurring, will not engage in our long-term spending problem. And so let his party give him the debt ceiling increase that he wants.
All right. So it's all Obama doing this. Right?
My mom had a saying growing up: "Actions speak louder than words." Bottom line is, the House voted to pass a clean CR.
Right. Yeah. No. End of story. Now, though, you mentioned him earlier. It goes to the Senate.
Yeah.
Right. It'll probably pass the Senate, but not everybody's going to vote for it, and not everybody on the right. There are some Republicans who are not happy with what John Boehner did. Right?
Senator Ted Cruz yesterday just completely, criticizing it. He thinks that there should be, something attached to it, and that they shouldn't just be voting to raise the debt ceiling. It'll be interesting to see just what exactly he does. I mean, this is, again, the architect of the last government shutdown. What will he do now? I don't see how this doesn't pass the Senate, though.
Here's Senator Cruz.
The president is saying he wants a blank check with zero spending reforms, nothing fixing the problem. I think that's irresponsible to our kids and grandkids to give them that kind of debt.
Right. So maybe we should shut down the government again, Senator Cruz, right? He didn't get many out. He didn't leave the last battle with many allies in the Senate, did he?
No, and it's going to be and since that government shutdown, we've seen Senator Cruz try to perhaps mend some of his relationships and some of the tensions that he's created. Forget about on the left, but within his own party. This is only a freshman senator. Someone who's only been on the scene for a year.
Point.
So
Right. But I think the only guy that he ended up with was Mike Lee from Utah, right?
Yeah. Rising star, by the way, Mike Lee, someone who is bilingual, a Mormon, and whose name gets tossed around a lot for perhaps 2016 vice presidential pick.
And despite the fact that he was there with Cruz, sort of way out on the government shutdown, you're right. He doesn't leave. He emerged out of it, a little better shape.
He strikes a different tone
than Ted Cruz did. Right, strikes a different tone. Right. So, is this going to create a problem for Boehner's speakership?
That's an interesting point, because here's the thing, right? I mean, all is forgotten, right, if the Republicans are able to win back the Senate and the House after in the 2014 midterm. And I think, again, this was a strategic type of maneuver from Speaker Boehner that we saw yesterday and that we've been seeing play out over the past couple of weeks. Because, they want to keep the focus on Obamacare. They want to keep the focus on larger issues that are going to help them as a party heading into the midterms, because again, they're just 6 seats shy of winning back the Senate. They're trying to keep everybody cohesive on the same page with an argument. And if you look back at Senator Ted Cruz's government shutdown just a couple of months ago, that was bruising to them. That was damaging to the Republican Party as a whole. Why risk that again?
See, but I find that very, very interesting, because I think you're right. Part of the thinking here was, let's not have any other issue on the table. Let's just focus Obamacare. Not even immigration reform. We're going to focus Obamacare. We're going to run and we're going to win on Obamacare in 2014. That's what Mitt Romney said in 2012.
They're putting a lot of emphasis on Obamacare. You're right.
All their eggs in that one basket. And will it work? Okay, you heard the vote on the debt ceiling. John Boehner threw in the towel, gave it to Democrats. Democrats basically delivered on the debt ceiling last night. A huge victory for President Obama, who refused to negotiate on it, said, I will not be held hostage on the debt ceiling. He won. Boehner lost. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about with Kevin Cirilli here on this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
For more than 18 months, the members of AFSCME 3299 have been working to secure a new contract with the University of California. With workplace injuries at UC skyrocketing and government fines related to safety deficiencies at UC hospitals skyrocketing, Local 3299's top priority has been safe staffing at the workplace.
We've been short of people for the last 5 years. They're stretching us thin, which the students are suffering, the faculty suffering, and the patients are suffering.
While UC administrators have granted these standards to other UC workers, they have refused to make similar accommodations for AFSCME represented workers who perform the most physically demanding labor at UC.
It takes a whole team to take care of the patient. It's not just the RN and it's not just the doctor. The nurses were able to win a great contract, and AFSCME workers, the patient care workers and service workers, they're part of the team and they deserve that same fair contract too.
We take pride into working for the university, and we feel like the university doesn't value the work that we do.
But the second-class treatment of AFSCME workers doesn't end at safety and staffing. On wages, benefits, and other issues, UC refuses to offer AFSCME 3299 members the same respect they afford their other workers.
I have 3 jobs because what the university pays me is just not enough to make a living for my family and myself.
99% of service workers in the UC system make so little money that they're eligible for at least some form of public assistance. At the same time, the number of executives in the UC system that have crossed over into making at least $250,000 a year has more than doubled since 2008.
The University of California has long been a beacon of hope and progress for those struggling for dignity and fairness. With such a proud history, it is disturbing to see the leadership of the university treat its lowest paid workers like second-class citizens.
all workers at the university deserve equal treatment.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, we are talking Congress. And actually, some action in the House of Representatives, as surprising as it seems. Yesterday, maybe the snowstorm. No doubt. The snowstorm had a lot to do with it. Kevin Cirilli, finance reporter for Politico, here in the studio with us. We'll take your calls here. Stephen is calling from Aurora, Illinois. Stephen, what do you say? Hi.
I can't understand why the constitutional loving Republicans can't look at the Constitution that says that all spending and taxation must originate from the Congress. This is the Congressman's mess. This is not President Obama's mess. How come they keep getting away with this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I forget what that article, that section of the Constitution is, but it often comes up at our briefings where reporters will ask, under the Constitution, don't they have to do this? Thanks, Stephen, for the question. What's the answer?
Well,
they do have to. We have to pay our bills. It says that in the Constitution. I don't have my copy handy.
Well, and Americans have to pay their bills too, right? And I think there's a disconnect often. Why can Congress just raise the debt limit? Otherwise, though, if we don't, we default, and that could have catastrophic.
But I guess the point is, the Constitution says we have to pay our bills. So why do we even have this stupid debt ceiling? Why do we go through this? Have to jump through this hoop every time. It's only legislatively that was laid down, and so you know what I mean. It seems it's an artificial exercise for something that under the Constitution we have to do.
And you're hearing that, I think, from you just articulated that about how some folks are saying get rid of the debt limit altogether.
Right.
And, like you had just mentioned, but on the flip side, how much can we keep spending and spending and spending before we have, before we start to feel its effects? And I think that, there is something to be said for every time we have to raise the debt ceiling, being aware of the government spending.
Isn't the answer to that, if that is a problem, for Congress to stop spending money rather than for Congress to have to fight over whether or not we're going to raise the debt ceiling? The fight over raising the debt ceiling only comes after Congress has already spent the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
so they're hypocrites. They vote for all this money to spend, and then they say, it's like we put all this stuff on our credit card, and then we say, oh, no, we're not going to pay that credit card bill. Well, dude.
And, and I think, because it doesn't work like that for the average Joe, and outside of Philly where I grew up, you have to pay your bills on time. But I will say that this whole extraordinary measures that we hear, you talk about like how ludicrous some of this debate is. I mean, you always hear the Treasury Department say, like, right around the, a couple weeks before they have to raise the debt limit, we have to use quote unquote extraordinary measures in order to keep things working. I mean, it's just so much political theater, all of this drama, but we haven't really, except a few months ago, really come up to the edge of the cliff where we have defaulted. But, we did see our credit rating drop after just a couple of years ago. And so we have seen it play out and negatively impact our economy when we don't.
The other news on the finance front, yesterday, she made her first appearance on Capitol Hill, the new chair of the Fed. Janet Yellen said, unemployment is still too high. I'm just kind of summing up. But the economy is perking along and slowly. And if it continues going in this direction, we're going to continue to cut back on the amount of bonds that we're buying. The market seemed to like what they heard, huh?
Yeah, and the two takeaways from Janet Yellen, from Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen now.
Yes,
her first appearance on the Hill yesterday since being sworn in. And two takeaways I think that I came away with it from. The first is Yellen stays the course. This is someone who is going to continue her predecessor, Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke's policies, but also she is not going to get swept into drama. The Federal Reserve often stays above the fray of politics. We saw that yesterday, House Republicans asking her about that congressional report of Obamacare costing arguably some of the, she was not going to have it. She stayed above politics. I think it was a very steady message from her. Janet Yellen, and the most powerful woman, I think, in our country right now.
There won't be any daylight between her and Bernanke.
No.
Least, right?
No, I think, though, it's if you've been reading some of the interviews, the limited interviews that she has given, I think that she really is looking to shine a light on unemployment and income inequality.
And the Dow went up almost 200 points yesterday in response.
It did, but on her first day, it dipped a little bit. So who knows what these Wall Street brokers are doing? But it's been Wall Street's been relatively steady, I think, as a whole over the last week. Yeah.
Well, when you do know, you know who to call.
Well, when I know, before I call you, I'll call Miley.
I mean, there's insider trading here. We're not against it on the Bill Press Show, right? If all of our people that we know that have any insights into where to invest and where to spend your money, we say, just call us, right? And we will not turn you in. But it's when you look at Yellen, she was she's such a great lady. I've never met her, but I'm impressed by her, and she certainly knows her stuff. She was the obvious choice for the next chair, and everybody knew that she was going to be confirmed. Just the idea, though, that they had to play politics for so long by holding her up until after the beginning of the year and all of that.
But the real political fight
that they play.
The real political fight before Janet Yellen was within the Democratic Party between the progressives who were against Larry Summers, wanting to get Janet Yellen. That for me was a bigger fight than the delay over the timing of it. Speaking of which, if we're
Larry Summers would have been such a disaster. The worst possible thing Obama could have done. Thank God he was talked out of it.
It'll be interesting to see if the same people who opposed Larry Summers will oppose Stanley Fischer, who has been nominated for the Federal Reserve's number 2 spot. Stanley Fischer, he has dual citizenship in Israel and the U.S., and is the former head of the Bank of Israel and has worked in Wall Street. And so there are a lot of the same concerns for Summers progressives now have with Fischer. But will people care enough?
You're raising that issue to me. I didn't know about that. We'll look into that. Kevin Cirilli, always good to have you here. We'll have you back soon.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Politico, finance reporter, Politico.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the early 20th century, the war to end all wars didn't end war at all. It stoked the fires of change. A traumatized world was ripe for change. The world was ready for modernism. Modernists wanted to forget history, or at least reinterpret it. More than just a style, modernism applied to virtually all forms of creative expression. Innovative artists like Picasso, Escher, Dali, they all started looking at their world differently. Other artists tried painting light itself. These were the Impressionists. Surrealists went a bit further. We had entered the age of the isms. Cubism, symbolism, futurism, constructivism. All these new modern ways of looking at the world blew people away. When it came to architecture, modernists were intrigued by emerging technology. Concrete, glass and steel featured heavily in their buildings. Modernists believed that they could design a better society. Ornamental indulgence was considered a frivolous waste of effort. They thought function should always dictate form, and that mankind's intelligence, creativity and capability for radical thinking should be celebrated. Take the Russian inventor Georgy Krutikov. he suggested an idea for a city held aloft by electrical currents. This at a time when there was barely enough wattage to keep the lights on. Not everything they designed was a resounding success. But you could argue modernism was the single most influential movement of the 20th century. From house music to housewares, tables and chairs to graphic design, all have been created by the aesthetics and ideas of modernism.
Okay, what do you say? What do you say? Did you like hours number 1 and 2? Damn straight. Okay, you're going to love hour number 3, but you don't get it on Free Speech TV. Big mistake, but at any rate, you got an option. Go over to TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, and join us with Justin Sink, who covers the White House for The Hill, and then John Nichols from The Nation magazine will be here the entire hour as a friend of Bill. Love John Nichols. You'll love him too. Stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, sorry I was distracted there for a while.
I hate to interrupt you.
Am I on the air?
Yeah.
Is this a show we're doing?
Yeah, no big thing.
Hey, President Obama, remembering his State of the Union, he announced that he was going to sign an executive order raising the minimum wage for those who work for federal contractors. He will sign that today at the White House. And otherwise, he has the daily briefing with the Vice President. After that, the only other thing on the agenda is our press briefing with Jay Carney at 12:45. Back with John Nichols
This
from The
is
Nation
the
as our
Bill
friend of
Press
Bill.
Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, take a good look at us today because we may be snowed in tomorrow. Yes, we may be just buried in snow when you check in tomorrow. That's what they say. I don't know. And all the weather people seem to be saying the same thing. For anywhere from Texas all the way across the South, up through the South to Washington, D.C., all the way up to Maine. I'm telling you, if you were here from Madison, Wisconsin, you might think you're back at Madison, Wisconsin. John Nichols is here from Madison, Wisconsin. Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, Bill. I will tell you that I left Madison yesterday, and it was 6 below zero, and there was 3 feet of snow. So,
I was going to say, yeah.
But
if you're from Madison, Wisconsin, you'd look at this and say, oh, this is nothing.
But this is what I have learned. And I've become less of a kind of egotist about this. It is not the snow; it's your capacity to deal with it.
Yes, of course.
We saw an incredible tragedy in Atlanta a week or so ago, where they might have had the capacity to deal with it, but their governor decided not to pay attention.
Right. But the thing is, too, you're in Madison. You flew out of Madison.
Yeah.
With that much snow and that cold, man, if we just think it's going to get cold, we shut down the airports in the East.
I have had the East has, and I think we have this in our lives. There's things you anticipate that really scare you and stuff like that. The East has, especially down south of New York, this fear of snow. That I was here in December where everybody was just going crazy. Oh, we're canceling events and we're doing all that. I got off the train coming out of New York. There was no snow.
No. Tell me about it.
So I know that anticipation issue.
So here we are. We're talking, everybody's talking
weather.
Snow. We've got more important things to talk about, too. And we will on the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital. As always, good to have you with us. Don't forget, you can join the conversation anytime at 866-55-PRESS. We're out at you on your local progressive talk radio station, including 92.1 The Mic in Madison. And coming to you live worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. 25 countries tuning in yesterday, and we hope to even beat that today. We love it. So wherever you are on the globe, on the planet, welcome to the program. John Nichols, you met. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy, you know. Elisa Cruz on the phones, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer as well. John, it was a big day at the White House yesterday. You were here. Yeah. I guess you came in for to greet Francois Hollande.
How was the dinner last night?
Be part of the well. How was the dinner last night?
I'm not that big on French food.
Yeah, brulee was a little runny.
Yeah, but the weird thing is this is such a tragedy. Hollande is in many ways America's one of America's biggest allies right now. Really key ally, especially in Africa, the Middle East, host of other areas. And yet, all anybody talked about was whether he's bringing a girlfriend or his wife.
I know. Yeah.
So it was kind of it speaks volumes about how we literally don't know how to cover foreign policy anymore.
But it was a big arrival ceremony yesterday, just about an hour from now, yesterday morning at the White House. That's the real talk about pomp and circumstance. They really know how to do it.
You got to lay it on for the French.
Sarkozy was here a couple of years ago, but it was not an official state visit. So it was very low key. Yesterday, they pulled out all the stops. Here's the president welcoming the president of France.
It is a great honor to welcome my friend President Hollande and his delegation for their first state visit to the United States. In fact, the first state visit by a French president in nearly 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And the president said, bonjour, and then he said, that's it. That's all.
Yeah, don't speak too much French. Don't get in that carry problem there. Yeah.
They were so lovey-dovey yesterday that one of the French reporters asked, now, Mr. President, so you agree on so much. Has France now replaced England as your number one country?
And you know what the interesting answer is? That for Obama, maybe. But and this is the subtlety of Obama, and we should. I know that we live in America where we don't cover foreign policy seriously, but if we were to take a moment to do so, we would say that the subtlety of Barack Obama is that, we talk about him almost exclusively on domestic issues and economy and other things are legit for that. But people lose the fact that he is one of the most nuanced players on the international stage that we have had in a very long time. And I know this is a terrible comparison and people won't like it, but perhaps since Nixon. He is a guy who actually understands the geopolitics and the people he's dealing with and who he needs to be friends with to achieve complex goals. keep America out of war, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it did take Nixon to open up China.
Yeah, I'm not. We won't have a Nixon party here, but it is important to understand that Obama, when the history books are written, he may get very mixed results on domestic. We'll see what happens on domestic, but on foreign policy, I will argue that there's going to be a shelf of books, and many of them are going to be quite favorable.
Lots to cover here with John Nichols, and we will, and with you at 866-55-PRESS. Justin Sink joins us from The Hill a little bit later in the hour. We'll get right into it, but first, Peter, as always, with the big stories of the day.
Yes, indeed. Some news to get out there. Former NBC News anchor Tom Brokaw made the announcement yesterday that he has been diagnosed with multiple myeloma. It's a cancer affecting the blood cells in the bone marrow. However, he did also state that the doctors are quite optimistic about the outcome of the treatment he's receiving and hopes to make a full recovery.
Let us hope so. A real giant and a great friend, Tom Brokaw.
You were just talking about the White House state dinner for France. Not only is it about the president of France and the food that they serve, but there were some celebrities and who was on the list to come. A lot of politicians were there, including Eric Cantor and Paul Ryan. There were some
Pat Leahy.
Pat Leahy was there. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was there. Lots of politicians were there. There were some media types there. Jeff Zucker from CNN, New York Times executive editor Jill Abramson, and of course
Al Sharpton.
Al Sharpton was there. There were plenty of celebrities in the mix as well. Stephen Colbert, actor Bradley Cooper, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Well, Colbert is a French.
Although he
citizen,
said he is not French.
Yeah,
you think with
it's
the name?
Colbert.
It's Colbert.
Yeah, it is Colbert.
But Julia Louis-Dreyfus is in fact very tied to some very important families,
and she plays the
I believe.
vice president on Veep. So she tweeted out a photo a couple of hours ago of her next to the actual Veep, Joe Biden.
Aha.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And on to the Olympics, where something that has never happened before took place in the women's downhill skiing. Tina Mays of Slovenia and Dominique Gizem of Switzerland tied for the gold medal. It has never happened before. Tina Mays of Slovenia was favored to win the event, and Gizem of Switzerland was not really expected to show up on the radar, but she had the race of her life. They tied for a gold medal. Again, never happened before.
Wow. But if they both went home with the gold.
Exactly.
Is this the dumbing down of the Olympics? That they get ties? Can't they?
Ties,
I mean, really, isn't there a shade of difference? Isn't there a shade of difference?
On one side.
Can I just say my man Shaun White didn't tie anybody?
I was just going to say, I think that was the dumbing down of the Olympics.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, 14 minutes after the hour, John, there's so much going on. You have the lead. By the way, so I got My Nation magazine
I love
this
you
morning,
for that.
right?
Yeah.
I do. Here's what I can't figure out. Why do I get My Nation magazine with the Washington Post, delivered with the Washington Post?
I cannot answer that question. I will ask the professionals in our circulation department.
But I do.
But I believe everyone should.
I do too. I do too. And you have the lead editorial in The Nation this week, which just since this has arrived at 5 o'clock this morning or 4 o'clock this morning, I didn't have a chance to read it yet. 2016, why worry? Mm-hmm. Why are we worrying about 2016 right now? And what should we be worrying about? What's the point of the editorial?
Well, the point of the editorial is to say that despite the fact that we cover politics all the time, we don't pay a lot of attention to a lot of the maneuvering that's going on. And 2016, the presidential race, is turning out to be the fastest starting presidential race in American history. The Republicans have already restructured their primary process to collapse the process into probably under 2 months, maybe less.
Because of it was so drawn out the last time too, right? And so many candidates, it was like the clown show.
Exactly, the clown car crashing often, and this kind of rise of Herman Cain, fall of Herman Cain, rise of Newt Gingrich, fall of Newt Gingrich. It was very embarrassing to the party, but also it's something else. They have a real Tea Party problem. And so the establishment of the party is collapsing the process so that somebody with a lot of connections and a lot of money can move fast and secure. Then they also want to hold their convention in June. So instead of August or September.
Whoa.
Yes. And the idea on that is that they can start fundraising immediately after the primaries. So they're doing a lot to close their process down.
What are Democrats doing?
Well, the Democrats are all watching Hillary Clinton. who potentially could have a big impact on closing that process down. And so what we're saying is that while we worry about the really important stuff, which is 2014 and also all the issues that are in play, we should be conscious as progressives that there's an effort to narrow this process to such an extent that we really could end up as spectators. And rather than being spectators, we're saying get engaged now. Start looking at what's going on. I'm going to be myself this coming week. I've got a big article on some issues Elizabeth Warren's bringing into the national discourse. We're going to talk to people like Bernie Sanders and others. Not necessarily that they will be candidates, but that we're going to try and do a lot to shape the discourse and also celebrate reformers who are trying to keep money out, get debates in, things like that.
I really agree with what you're doing, and I have real concerns about any attempts to shut down the process in 2016. And as much as I love Hillary, it really concerns me that everybody seems to think, okay, well, she's going to be our nominee, so let's just. I mean, we've made that mistake before. But I want to challenge you on one thing, which really drives me crazy. Is I think as progressives, we ought to be forget 2016 right now, and we ought to be focusing on 2014. Scott Walker is up. Governor of Mexico is up. The governor of Florida
Governor
is
of
up.
Pennsylvania.
The governor of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
This idiot in Maine, Governor LePage, is up. We had Mike Michaud in here last week, and he was a great guy, great progressive. So we ought to be winning those governorships back, holding on to the Senate and winning the House back in 2014. And instead, everybody wants to talk about 2016.
But that's a part of what I'm writing about. We're not at odds, you and I.
Oh, okay.
In fact, this is the challenge that there is such a rush towards 16 that the power brokers are essentially shaping things now.
Yeah.
And we're being left by the sidelines. A lot of ordinary folks being left by the sidelines. We've got to make sure that doesn't happen. But we also, the real intervention here is to get away from the personalities. Not to be for or anti Hillary Clinton. That's not the point. To get away from the personalities and to get these central issues up front. And this is a very big deal. We can say, oh, we don't want to, spend all our time thinking about the presidential. We want to focus on now, and that's right. But we have to acknowledge the reality that lots of trains are starting to run, and we cannot let them go without us. Secondly, though, if we emphasize issues and if we celebrate those who are bringing issues forward, I think that we have a good impact on 14 and 16. And this is one of the things we need to, progressives, frankly, need to become full spectrum political players. We need to be able to do 2-3 things at once and actually be engaged at a lot of levels. And I think the core of it is the issues and the values. And so I'm very excited. I'm got a piece coming in this next week about Elizabeth Warren. And just to give you a quick hit on Elizabeth Warren took a federal study. There was a big study by the Inspector General of the Post Office that noted that 68 million Americans are unbanked, i.e. they don't have a solid banking services. 68 million Americans
don't have a bank account.
Yeah,
basically
don't have access to banking services that they would baseline. Right.
Yeah,
68 million. Ooh. This is what creates the payday loan, check cashing industry. At every place you go, you see those. Well, who goes to those? Well, what Elizabeth Warren has suggested is, what do we have on Main Street in every town, in every neighborhood of America, even the poorest neighborhoods, the poorest towns? Post offices. What's in trouble right now?
I was going to say McDonald's, but
no, but there are more post offices than McDonald's. And what's in trouble? Yeah, I know.
I actually you just startled me with that.
Take a look.
Me too.
Take a look at the details. Yes,
I believe you. I'm sure you've done your research.
McDonald's is coming up, so it's a competitive thing.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Post Office has an incredible network across this country. It's under assault. Darrell Issa wants to privatize, shut things down.
Yeah,
well, here's a notion for you. Elizabeth Warren suggests, why don't we reestablish what we had from 1910 to 1967, postal banking, that every post office has a small banking operation that can cash a check without usurious interest rates, that can even allow people to create a savings account. Do you know, in 1967, we had postal banking across this country. We had the equivalent of $30 billion in postal banks. And it was shut down because the banking industry lobbied to get Congress to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Do you know, right now, one of the 20 biggest banks in the world is Japan Post Office. Germany has postal banking. Many countries around the world.
But, it makes sense because you can send a money order now
Yeah.
From
they
the
deal
post
with money at post offices all the time.
Yeah, money orders. And also, you can get your passport renewed at the post office. I have to renew my passport. I'm going to do it right up the street here at our post office. So, yeah. So why not?
And this is also, the post office has been hit with brutal assault on, paying its pension 75 years in the future and all this stuff like that. Let's fix that. But let's also make the post office a 21st century full-service entity that actually accomplishes something. Now, this is my point on the broader politics. Instead of running around saying, oh, maybe I'll run for president, maybe I won't, Elizabeth Warren is floating ideas like this out, talking about things like this. I think it is so incredibly valuable.
And she is such a power already in the United States Senate. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it. John Nichols throwing a lot there on the table to chew on this morning. 866-55-77-377. Give us a call, and we'll be right back with John Nichols from The Nation.
This is the Bill Press Show. is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 26 minutes after the hour. Justin Sink from The Hill covers the White House for The Hill. Will be along to join John Nichols and me at the half hour. John Nichols, you always stir up the people in Wisconsin, whether you're there or here.
Yeah.
Here's Pat from Beloit. Do you know where Beloit is?
Beloit is a great old industrial town right on the Illinois border.
There you go. Hi, Pat.
Hi, John. You forgot to tell him we have had 30-plus days of below zero temps this winter.
I didn't want to brag.
All right. Hats off to you.
My thermometer on my car said 26 below yesterday on the way to work.
Whoa.
Education, the environment, everything is so third world country in this state at this point. And I've lived here most of my life. I cannot believe how far we've fallen. Can Mary Burke do it? What do we have to do to get rid of Scott Walker? I personally, my whole family were union members, public union members. None of us are now because he's destroyed us.
All right, let's find out. Mary Burke, is she running against?
She is, Pat. She is
Pat.
the likely Democratic nominee, all but certain Democratic nominee. And, she was not a prominent person. She was a state cabinet member. She's rather well-to-do, so she's got some money. For a long time, I thought she was starting very slow as a candidate. In the last couple of weeks, some really interesting things has happened. She's come out for a 10-10 minimum wage in the state, whether the feds do it or not. Phasing it in, but quite good. She's ripping into the governor on his very bad tax policies, essentially trying to eliminate or diminish the income tax and other things. I think she started to hit her mark, like a lot of these Democratic governor candidates in Pennsylvania, Maine, and other places. So, if they get the resources, if the national Democrats don't forget about the states, I think it's possible in a lot of these states. But these governor races are not getting the attention they need right now, and they're very vital. Wisconsin is one, so is Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Florida.
And Maine.
Maine,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Very important.
This
Justin Sink joining
is
us.
the Bill
John
Press
Nichols
Show.
next.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday, February 12, The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, right down the street from the United States Capitol building, which is rushing to try to get things done before the snow starts, reportedly, later this afternoon. We are brought to you today in part by the National Education Association. Oh boy, we salute our good teachers. They're going to be working overtime again too, taking care of the kids who might have to end up sleeping in schools again throughout the South. Hope not. But our great teachers creating great public schools for every student under President Dennis Van Rokel. And you can find more about their good work at NEA.org. John Nichols here from The Nation. As a friend of Bill this entire hour, and John has moved over a slot to make room for a good friend from the White House. Justin Sink covers the White House, my buddy in the briefing room for The Hill. Hello, Justin. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And part of full disclosure, I've told you before, I write a column for The Hill every Tuesday. So we're double colleagues here. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
partners in arms. Yeah.
Well, what do you know? Surprise, surprise, the House actually got something done yesterday. They moved it up. They were going to vote today, but they're afraid of the snowstorm. They moved it up yesterday. And here's the announce of the vote, the final tally on a bill to raise the debt ceiling.
On this vote, the yeas are 221. The nays are 201. The bill is passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Now, we know without Democrats voting, the vote would have been 28 Republicans, and God knows how many Republicans against it. But this was a big victory for President Obama and a big defeat for John Boehner, Justin, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of times the president's sort of criticized for his legislative strategy, but what this shows is a big part of that is who's got the leverage in a situation, and where the White House has been very resolute and very successful is saying we're not going to negotiate on the debt ceiling. If we're going to jump off a fiscal cliff, Republicans, you're going to own it. And when it gets down to it, Speaker Boehner has kind of shown again and again that he's willing to buckle on this issue, and this was kind of an unambiguous victory for the White House.
You and I have heard them say that at the White House, John, day after day after day, because every day different reporters will say, well, how about if they offer this? Yeah. Would you take that? How about this one? How about Keystone Pipeline? How about military? Every day we hear it. And Jay Carney's answer was the same every day. No, no, no. And they held, but here's what they held firm. That's unusual for Obama to hold that firm, right? And it worked. So what does that mean, John?
Well, it was very unusual. It's vital. I think this president is recognizing that. I think this president really tried to believe that there was some way to find a compromise, some way to work with folks. Now it's an election year. It's very, very clear that the lines are drawn. Compromises are not going to be easy, and so they held firm. I do think there's something important to understand, though. A couple of subtle underpinnings of this. First off, we've had this kind of deficit hawk fantasy, the austerity game now, for about 5 years. Well, when you start to look at the books, the deficits are being addressed. The problems are not what they were. And so it becomes much harder to fan the hysteria. And so I think the Republicans had a weaker hand going into that. That's one side. The one final one.
On that point, were you there when Jason Furman came in last week?
Yeah.
Right. And Jason Furman, head of the Council of Economic Advisors, told us the deficit is now at 4% of GDP, and at its current trajectory will be 2.6%. I raised the question. I said, then why are you worrying about cutting the deficit anymore?
That's right.
So you're right. The mood, the politics should have changed too.
So I think that's one side of it.
Yeah,
and that's important, and that's a valuable thing to beat back these deficit hawks, to beat back this kind of fantasy on austerity. But there is a flip side, and I think that Justin may agree with me on this. I think the Republicans are also in full 2014 strategy. They are putting issues and challenges aside so that they can run on the issues they want to run on, particularly Obamacare.
Yes.
Bingo.
Well, one other point that I wanted to make that kind of dovetails with that is I was really interested by the kind of last-ditch effort by the Republicans before they finally kind of gave up and said, we're just going to pass a clean extension of the debt ceiling, was they were actually offering to raise government spending by repealing some of these cuts to military pension programs. And this is such a reversal from, a year ago when...
No, from December.
Yeah, from December. when they were saying every, dollar that we add to the debt ceiling has to be matched with a cut to the budget. And Republicans, the last time they kind of went through this, were really trying to hold that line. But as we saw through the government shutdown, they really started to realize kind of they don't have cards to play on this issue.
All right, I want to come back to the Obamacare thing in just a second, but so when they passed the mini budget deal before the beginning of the year, bipartisan, Patty Murray and Paul Ryan got together, the big question was, will any of this kumbaya, feel good, carry over into 2014? All right, well, since then, we've had a farm bill, a bipartisan farm bill, the president signed it, and now we have a bipartisan, even though a few Republicans, debt ceiling increase, which is going to pass the Senate. The president will sign it maybe as early as today. Is there anything else down the pipeline? Immigration reform?
That might be wishful thinking.
God, a ship too far, or whatever the phrase is, right? A bridge too far?
The real question that I have is, at this point, now that we've got a budget deal, now that we've got the debt ceiling hike, both into 2015, are we going to see Congress do anything else this year before we head into full election season? And there's a good chance that we won't.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, I think we're really talking about a chess game here, and it's the 2014 election chess game. And you are protecting some of your players here. And what do? Okay, let's take the debt ceiling fight out so we can't be accused of, holding things hostage.
You're right. Clear
Let's
the
take
decks.
Farm Bill. Frankly, the Farm Bill has a real importance in a lot of swing states. In America, I know we don't cover rural America very much as we should.
We fly over it.
We fly over it. But I'll tell you, the one thing rural America does is send senators to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And that Farm Bill had real resonance in states like, I don't know, let's think about it, North Carolina, Louisiana, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You getting my drift? Montana. And so I think both parties had a motivation to pass it. I think Justin's exactly right, though. Now it's like, what do we do next week? 10-10 minimum wage? I don't think so.
Well, I do think that that's what the White House will be focused on today. The president is going to hold the event to sign the executive order raising the federal minimum wage on new contracts. He's got economic events slated later in the week in California, and I think that's the issue that Democrats want to run on 2014 is income inequality, equality of opportunity. And so just like the Republicans are setting up a fight on Obamacare, Democrats really want to set up this economic fight. And now that sort of the general business of keeping the lights on and the doors open for the federal government, it's going to be a real battle between those two issues,
right.
And those will be the two big issues of the campaign.
No, so I think you're right. Now to come back to the point you made on Obamacare is that there were some Republicans who still said, Boehner, you can't do this. You can't do this. We've got to fight this. We can't agree to this at all. And Boehner just basically, look, let's focus on the real point here is winning, holding on to the House, maybe even increasing our majority in the House. And so we got to all this other stuff out of the way and focus on Obamacare. They are going to run on Obamacare.
Well, and they're looking
against Obamacare.
Right. And they're looking at polls that are relatively generous for them at this point.
All right, so how did this work for them in 2012? And why do we think it's going to work any better for them in 2014?
When our baby was born, she's now 10 years old, I used to take her to play dates. And she'd be there with another kid, and I said, isn't this wonderful? They're playing together. Then I realized they weren't. They were parallel playing. Each one was doing their own thing in the same place. I think that's going to be the reality of 2014, the election cycle. The Republicans are going to be having a debate all the time about Obamacare. Democrats are going to be having a debate all the time about building an economy that works, a job-driven wage increase economy. Now, the question is a very simple question. Whose discussion gets prominence? Whose discussion becomes dominant? Now, if the Republicans can draw the Democrats into a big debate about Obamacare, I think the Republicans come out ahead on there. On the other hand, if the Democrats can stay deeply focused on building an economy that works with their defenses of Obamacare becoming part of that broader economic vision, I think they've got a chance. But this is going to be an incredible wrestling match for what the issue is.
Now, Justin, do you think some of us are a little surprised this week when the president of the administration announced, well, we're going to delay, that employer mandate. We're going to delay that for another week.
Another year.
Another year. I meant to say another year. At first, I didn't understand that, but that is also probably part of the political maneuvering, isn't it? In other words, not making sure that that's not an issue in 2014.
It certainly gave Republicans some ammunition. I mean, we heard a lot of kind of leaders in the House and Senate say, kind of bring it into the argument of, we can't trust the president on immigration reform because once again he's set aside a part of the bill. But truthfully, I think the White House, the president said yesterday in his press conference that there's serious logistical concerns in pushing this back, but there's also this very practical political concern, which is that you don't want small business employers who are vocal, who kind of are a big constituency, grappling with this bureaucracy right around the time, that everybody's headed to the polls and saying, we don't know what to do with this, we can't figure it out. And so for the president, he wanted to get this issue off the table.
Exactly.
Pushes it back and would rather take this kind of temporary hit on an issue that will kind of fade from memory than have this sprawling
the
issue.
Republicans are going to complain no matter what he did.
Yeah.
And he'd rather have that little day of complaining than small businesses complaining and talking about all these people that they couldn't cover or businesses that had to shut down for the rest of the year and Democrats having to deal with that. So I think, again, he sort of cleared the decks with that issue politically.
It's almost as if you imagine this, it's almost as if both parties, both sides, have decided, okay,
here
we're in the ring now. We're going to change out of our business clothes. We're putting on our clothes for the fight. We're going to have a big one. And so we got to throw off all the excess stuff. We're taking the rings off. We're taking, everything. We're going to go for this fight. Now, the problem is, or the challenge is that there are a lot of other issues. Keystone's in there. Immigration is in there. There's a host of other matters. Both of these parties kind of want to keep on these tracks. I don't know that the people will let them.
There's another issue, drones and NSA. That's an issue I'd like to throw in the mix, and we will when we come back here with Justin Singh from The Hill and John Nichols from The Nation on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show. on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour here. On Wednesday morning, President Obama, a signing ceremony in the East Room of the White House this afternoon, where he will follow through on a pledge that he made in the State of the Union address to sign an executive order raising the minimum wage for all those who work in the future, working on people at federal companies that have federal contracts, up to $10.10 an hour. Justin Sink is in studio with us from The Hill, covers the White House for The Hill, and John Nichols from The Nation here. So, Justin, this executive order today, is this going to be the first of a flurry of executive orders? Is this what the presidency is going to look like for the next 3 years?
Well, certainly if the House and Senate stay split, I don't think the White House is very... they don't think that they're going to get a ton accomplished going through Congress. But what I've been interested by a lot lately is they've brought in there was a staff shakeup at the end of last year. They brought in guys like John Podesta, who was Bill Clinton's chief of staff in his second term, and he kind of laid the groundwork for what we might see out of this second term for President Obama. Executive orders focused on the environment, focused on ways that you can protect federal lands. We know that his portfolio is pretty similar in the Obama White House, and so we saw a flurry of executive actions kind of announced during the State of the Union. They're playing those out, going to different locations where they can get local media coverage for those executive actions now. And so as he kind of plays through that, I also expect a lot more of them to kind of be developed under the new senior advisors that are over at the White House.
What can you get done by executive order, John? You've been writing a lot about this lately.
I have been writing a lot about it. I think it's important to point out that today, when the president does his executive orders, it will be in this period of lawless overreach, the second one this year. And in fact, Barack Obama has
the second one
this year, I believe. And Barack Obama at this point has done less than half the number of executive orders that Ronald Reagan did, less than 5% of the number that Franklin Roosevelt did. So bold presidents use executive orders, and they use them for big things. It is important to understand that it was via an executive order that we integrated the defense industries at the start of World War II, bringing in a lot of very competent African Americans and women. And it was via an executive order that we integrated the military. It was via an executive order that John Kennedy brought affirmative action into federal hiring. And so executive orders have been very transformative throughout the history of this country. They have been abused. I do think there are lines that you should be careful about. But where Obama is talking about going right now is not extreme at all. This is a talking point against him, this notion of lawlessness. Right. What he is really talking about with some wage increase on federal contractor employees, that's exactly what executive orders are understood as.
Oh, I was going to say the Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order.
Right.
It's one hanging right on his...
It's kind of a big one.
But it will be interesting to see kind of how ambitious the president will get with this, especially if his sort of legislative agenda is frustrated. I think one area that a lot of activists are looking at especially is immigration reform. The White House is eager to give Congress space to work on this. They know that there's a lot of internal divisions, obviously, within the Republican Party on immigration, but that some leaders in the Republican Party know that to remain viable, especially in presidential elections down the road, that they'll likely need to pass an immigration bill. So they want to give Republicans a chance to move on that, but if they don't, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the president to kind of work at the margins at the very least on this issue. He's repeatedly said, and Jay Carney has repeatedly said, that they need legislation to do this correctly, but if that's not an option, where can he make sort of changes on the margins to help out this issue?
He did by executive order the DREAM Act, right? One other thing some people have suggested is by executive order he could stop the massive deportations that are taking place today.
I'm not even sure that's an executive order. I think in some senses that is really, it's sort of prioritizing. And this is one other subtlety of this. I think people conflate a lot of things that are going on. It's not an executive order, what Eric Holder just did as regards gays and lesbians and how they're treated. This is policy within cabinet agencies. An administration has immense power. It is a CEO sort of power, and it can be exercised. I don't think that the President Obama has up to this point begun to do so. He's being accused of lawlessness, so he might as well go for it and actually do some things within the parameters of what's
My
possible.
beef is that he hasn't abused his authority. My beef is that he hasn't used his authority enough. I want to see him do more. Great conversation, gentlemen. Justin, good to see you. I'll see you a little bit later at the briefing.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And John Nichols, you're welcome anytime. When they let you out of Madison, you got a second home here. I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Done yesterday. They passed the debt ceiling by a vote of 221 to 201. And how did they do it? They did it the same way and the only way they've ever gotten anything done, like the Farm Bill, like the budget deal. They let the full House vote. They let Democrats vote on something. The lesson here is, I think we've learned it by now, Democrats know how to govern, Republicans don't. That's the strongest argument I've heard so far for getting Republicans the hell out of power and putting the House back in the hands of Democrats. They know what they're doing, and they're willing to use their power to get some things done. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great, great Wednesday. We'll see you through the snowstorm. We'll be here tomorrow morning.